Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm speaking with Susan Dugan once again, and as usual, about A Course in Miracles. And today we thought we'd talk about, per Susan's suggestion, chapter 24, section 5 in the text of the Course, which is the Christ in you. And this is it's connected to everything else in the Course, but it's one of those sections that talks about our real identity and that we all share. So do you want to jump in, Susan? Any opening
Yeah,
remarks?
definitely. Actually, in my class that I teach on Tuesday nights, we're this next week doing a couple of sections on the theme of Jesus Christ, of what the symbol of Christ in the Course. But this section is such a lovely reflection of just really Christ as that symbol of our innocence, and also the innocence that we share as the one child of God in that undifferentiated union of love that we have not really left.
Mhm.
um, but the but he also gives us, some education in here, as always, about how important it is to really develop an intimacy with that symbol of love in our mind, that teacher of love in our mind, of innocence, all-inclusive innocence, which is really our teacher in learning to make our lives a classroom of forgiveness, to change the purpose of our lives from strengthening and reinforcing the ego thought system of separation, the belief in the sin of separation and the guilt and fear that comes with that we're constantly projecting outward on each other, and imagining ourselves apart from God, living this dream of individual bodies, um, in a projected world of guilt, basically. And we're the course is the path of forgiveness is back to the mind, is back to the right mind, and is really learning to join with that loving presence and that loving vision, to see things differently, to give a different purpose for our relationships, to see our sameness and the innocence, to ultimately learn that I'm not guilty, through learning that the guilt I love to blame you for is an illusion too. Um, so I think this is just a beautiful section, although it has some very graphic parts to it, as,
As
as
usual,
as many beautiful sections in the course do,
the stark
about what
contrast
we're
between
about the
insanity and sanity, right? Yeah,
right, the
yeah,
murderous thought that's
yeah.
underlying, the false belief in the murderous thought that that we had destroyed love by just wondering what it would be like to be separate, believing that we could create something other than God that would actually be of any value to us. Um, so so yeah, I think we were going to try this time to not go as long as we usually do. Um, and but This is a beautiful section, and it's really in just inviting us to open to that teacher within us, and in humility, in the awareness that the continuing returning to that continuing awareness, that willingness to entertain the possibility that I'm wrong about everything, and that there is a part of my mind that does know the truth, and I really want to find it. I really want to know it, because what I've taught myself, this world of separation that I projected out and constantly experience as an incoming attack, is not serving me, and I need to heal. So anyway,
Well put. We all need that healing, don't we?
we need to heal our mind, yes,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
ultimately learn that we're not here, that we haven't left God,
Mhm.
and that's really what we want. Right now, it seems scary still, because we told ourselves a bunch of lies based on that false belief in guilt, but they're just lies, and we need to sort of take little steps, to back to the mind, and we have a teacher that can lead us there. So um,
What you just
anyway,
shared reminded me of that. It's that place in the mind where we realize that we're not going to find joy in a joyless place in our mind,
right.
and but there is a joyous place in our mind that the Holy Spirit is leading us gently and inexorably back to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, All right, well, we'll divide it. I'm just going to read the first paragraph and then we can sort of alternate from there. But
Sounds good.
so we're in, and we're not going to read the entire section. We're in chapter 24, and it's section 5, the Christ in you. And this is in the text. And so we're starting with paragraph 3, and we're going to read through paragraph 7. So he starts out by saying, where could your peace arise but from forgiveness? Which, there's no peace in the dream. There's no real peace here in the world because it was set up as to reflect that unstable belief that we had, we had created something other than heaven. The Christ in you looks only on the truth and sees no condemnation that could need forgiveness. So he is unaffected by the Christ in us is that part of our mind that doesn't take the conflict in this world seriously, in my life seriously, is not defensive because it knows that it's just silly. There's nothing really happening here, that we're playing a game with ourselves about, what would it be like to be separate from God? And only it's a hurtful game. And, it would be in our best interest to begin to see that and stop playing,
Yeah.
And so,
It's the part of our mind that did remember to laugh, but not derisively at the tiny mad
right,
idea that we
gently
could be
at the
apart from each other and from our creator, and we could make up a world that is populated with bodies and galaxies and atoms that it seemed to achieve that. Yeah.
right, that it was just silly
Mhm.
that, taking that seriously, it wasn't the belief in itself that had any effect. It was just that we took it seriously.
Right.
So, so the Christ in you looks only on the truth and sees no condemnation that could need forgiveness. He is at peace because he sees no sin. He never took that seriously. Identify with him, and what has he that you have not? He is your eyes, your ears, your hands, your feet. Not literally, because he doesn't have any of these body parts. But as long as we believe we're in the dream and we believe we're a body, we can allow that when we join with that love in the mind, we can allow that to inform our the way we interact with others, and we can shift from our defensiveness and sense of one or the other to a sense of we're going home together, and we're all fighting the same hard battle, and forgive truly.
Which is the title of a new release from Foundation for A Course in Miracles. While fighting the same hard battle.
Oh, is it? Is
Yeah,
it?
they just came out with that today. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, an
Okay.
anthology.
So how gentle are the sights he sees, the sounds he hears, how beautiful his hand that holds his brothers. Meaning we look gently on our brother, on the ones we love to hate, right?
Mhm.
Change our mind. And how lovingly he walks beside him, showing him what can be seen and heard, and where he will see nothing, and there is no sound to hear. So really all that can be seen or heard is the call for love, right? Here in the dream is my call for love, and ultimately the song of heaven, that's the forgotten song that's always calling to all of us to come home, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. Even though it expresses in seemingly vastly different ways for each person in
absolutely,
terms of the
that
forms, but the content is always the same of
content is
that
always
longing for the embrace metaphorically of our creator, that we seem to have believed that it was possible to have forsaken that, but it wasn't possible.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I read the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yet let your specialness direct his way, and you will follow, and both will walk in danger, each intent in the dark forest of the sightless, unlit but by the shifting tiny gleams that spark an instant from the fireflies of sin and then go out, to lead the other to a nameless precipice and hurl him over it.
It's one of my favorite parts of the
Pretty
course.
graphic. Kind of ties into the I was giving a little talk for School for a Course in Miracles the other day on the Plato's cave allegory, and I was thinking, well, we need Holy Spirit, aka Jesus of the Course, to guide us out of the darkness that we're blind to reality. So we metaphorically we need that guidance to not hurl ourselves, let alone everyone else that we're projecting onto over
Right.
these
Well,
dark
when we
precipices in our mind, right?
absolutely, and I mean, honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, we all really, have thoughts of hurling our brother over the precipice or worse, right, at times.
What,
So
on hold again?
yeah, right, exactly. But
Our
as you
customers
as
are.
you pointed out, our projections are, instantly returned to ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't, it's only ourselves that we crucify the person. So yes, but go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. For what can specialness delight in but to kill? What does it seek for but the sight of death? Where does it lead but to destruction? Yet think not that it looked upon your brother first, nor hated him before it hated you. The sin its eyes behold in him and love to look upon, it saw in you, and looks on still with joy. I think that joy should have quotes around it, but
Right.
the ego's version.
The ego's joy, right?
Exactly. Yet is it joy to look upon decay and madness and believe this crumbling thing with flesh already loosened from the bone and sightless holes for eyes is like yourself. Yeah, pretty macabre.
That's the
Pretty
body, right?
film noir of egos, which is really the only kind of movie that ego knows how to make. Yeah, it's just
Right,
those
right.
dark dramas. Yeah.
And I mean, in our dream, we come here to play the game of victims and victimizers,
Mhm.
and our it's our unwillingness we're always trying to portray the other person as the victimizer, and using our sense of victimization then to retaliate and hurl them over the precipice. I mean, those are that's the game that we're engaged in, and it's a lethal game. It has its ultimate outcome is death for all, is those skeletons that we turn into. And Jesus is always trying to really get us to look at that. As beautiful as the language, much of the language of the course is, it also has a lot of graphic language about what we're really trying to do, because he's trying to get our attention and really see this, and it's the looking and paying attention that really shows us, yeah, that is what I'm doing. It's
But
like
since the whole world of space and time is metaphor, I won't change the rating on the YouTube video to.
right. Oh, good.
We're talking metaphor here because that's what we believe we are. Is
Right,
we've identified with the symbols, but that's not our real identity, fortunately.
exactly.
Yeah.
So all right, I guess it's my turn. Great.
Number 5.
Paragraph 5.
Uh-huh.
Rejoice, you have no eyes with which to see, in truth, no ears to listen, and no hands to hold, nor feet to guide. That rejoice that you're not a body, that you're a decision-making mind, right? And you can change your mind. Be glad that only Christ can lend you his while you have need of them. So that's just saying that, Jesus can meet us in the condition we think we're in, even here in the seeming world. And if we join with him in the mind, then our whatever interactions we're having become loving, become forgiveness lessons. Um, they are illusions too, as much as yours. And yet, because they serve a different purpose, the strength their purpose holds is given them. So that different purpose is to make our lives a forgiveness classroom. That's the new overriding purpose of my life and all the roles that I have to play here. The strength their purpose holds is given them, and what they see and hear and hold and lead is given light, that you may lead as you were led, that we may demonstrate that in our relationships that, by our defenselessness, that the other person has that same power in the mind to choose for that defenselessness too within them when they're ready. It's not for us to try to change their mind, but to change our mind about them. Answer my call for love and focus on the need for healing my split mind.
Yeah. As you were sharing that, I was thinking about one of Ken Wapnick's audios that I remember listening to some while ago about, it's about, parents providing like an arch of protection, and part of that was symbolized by by not responding to children's tantrums and not taking the content seriously. That's where there's a true nurturing place for growth. And I think that's kind of the equivalent to what the Course is saying with us, and Jesus and Holy Spirit and demonstrate to us, is they don't take our dreams seriously, and they ask us to do the same thing, so that by demonstrating that no one can hurt us and that we have hurt no one and no one has hurt anyone in truth. Now, on level of form, behaviorally, people do all kinds of crazy things to each other all the time. But
Right.
but in truth, in our eternal, unchanging being, none of that happened.
Right. And I mean, on the level of form, we within the dream, as long as we believe we're bodies, it could be very right-minded to correct a child who's having a
Sure.
tantrum, you
Absolutely.
know, or
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
get a restraining order on someone, or
Sure.
but
Yeah.
the Course is always never talking about behavior. It's always talking
Right.
about at the level of the mind, we're not condemning them to hell. We're seeing that they have an ego too, and they're frightened just like me. And whatever is most loving in that situation will be demonstrated once we get our ego out of the way. And
Right.
that's our only job,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, if we have to be firm with the child, because that's our role, that's being faithful to our role as a parent, then we'll do it without that sense of anger and you know needing our child to be a certain way. However, letting them be who they are, and but doing what might be most helpful to them
Mhm.
until they're stop hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And
So
that seemed like it also kind of ties into the whole thing of just recognizing that someone else's expression of acting out oftentimes is a call for love, and taking it a little deeper, it's always my call for love
absolutely.
seen more in depth.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my opportunity to heal my projections by withdrawing them and saying, well, what if that right-minded perception really sees the innocence behind the behavior, and kind of cuts through like an X-ray vision to what's happening on the level of form, and sees that there's true sinlessness, to true innocence
Right.
behind the
That's what we
facade of
need
the world.
help with. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
absolutely,
with
absolutely, yeah,
ourselves. Yep.
yep,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
Shall I read number 6?
Sure.
Okay. The Christ in you is very still. He knows where you are going, and he leads you there in gentleness and blessing all the way. His love for God replaces all the fear you thought you saw within yourself. His holiness shows you himself in him whose hand you hold and whom you lead to him. And what you see is like yourself. For what but Christ is there to see and hear and love and follow home? He looked upon you first, but recognized that you were not complete. And so he sought for your completion in each living thing that he beholds and loves, and seeks it still, that each might offer you the love of God. And of course, our relationships in this world are our classroom, with everyone and everything, um, where we think that we're incomplete until we look for Holy Spirit's counsel and see that the completion was there all along. But like you
Right.
say, we're not going to see that on our own. We need that help in order to
Right.
see the completion and see the the validation, the approval, and the longing, and the love, and the acceptance. All those things that every heart desires, has always been there, but we've covered it over with our projections.
Well said.
Yeah.
So, and of course, it's this, we're supposed to be reading this, as Ken always said, like a great work of art that it is. He's using a lot of poetic language and a lot of
Yeah.
symbolic language, but
Hmm.
um, I think if we listen to it with the heart of our mind, I like to think of it as, then we hear it, we open to it,
Hmm.
and we can really join with it, and know that he's not, whenever the Course is talking as though it is meeting us in a real world here, it's it's metaphor.
Mhm, mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
put it in the the greater context of the metaphysics of the course, that has to be the case.
If it's
So
always and only about the mind, how
nothing
could it be
out
others?
there. That's right. Nothing.
Yeah,
Ideas leave not their source. Nothing.
yeah,
This is all happening in the mind.
yeah.
So paragraph 7. Yet is he quiet, the Christ in you, for he knows that love is in you now and safely held in you by that same hand that holds your brothers in your own. Christ's hand holds all his brothers in himself. Everyone is included in this. He gives them vision for their sightless eyes and sings to them of heaven, that their ears may hear no more the sound of battle and of death. He reaches through them, holding out his hand, that everyone may bless all living things and see their holiness. And he rejoices that these sights are yours, to look upon with him and share his joy. His perfect lack of specialness he offers you, that you may save all living things from death, receiving from each one the gift of life that your forgiveness offers to yourself. The sight of Christ is all there is to see. The song of Christ is all there is to hear. The hand of Christ is all there is to hold. There is no journey but to walk with him. And I mean, it's when we are willing to join with that presence in the mind, again, that's the only way that's really what the hand we're reaching for when it talks about taking our brother's hand, because it must include whoever we're in disagreement with. It must shift our belief
Mhm,
that
mhm.
it's one or the other. And we're told in the course that we go home together or not at all at the end of the obstacles to peace, the lifting of the veil. Um, so our willingness to overcome our resistance and fear of joining with that loving presence in our mind is what will help us with it. I mean, that's what helps us in our relationships. That's the only way that we can see our brothers differently. It's impossible for Susan or Bruce to see someone differently,
Mhm.
as a personal self, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Just almost by definition, the separate self is seeing other separate selves and missing the whole point of what the course is trying to
right,
get us
right. We're
back to in our mind.
blinded. I mean, the body's eyes are blinding us. We're meant to blind us.
Mhm,
Body's ears were meant to shut out our awareness of that loving presence in our mind, that memory of wholeness in our mind.
mhm.
So we have to make a conscious effort and when we're making a conscious effort, it's really not my brain doing that. It's a part of my mind that the course, that Ken calls the decision making mind.
Yeah.
That is really all we are. Um, in our seemingly separated state is just a mind believing that it's separate, that also has this spark of this memory of wholeness that it can choose for to teach it to come home, right?
And the piece of that awareness restored to us is I try to keep reminding myself is so far beyond our everyday experience that we we just need to trust that that is where we're headed, even though we get little glimpses of it and they
Right.
become more and more frequent. I think the still the depth and breadth of that total
So yeah,
inclusiveness is still way beyond the scope of what we can imagine at this point.
right. We're just kind of dipping our toe in the water,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
and then. Yeah.
But that's a
Uh,
good thing because that means that all the stark insanity that he talks about on those prior paragraph or two, that is the ego's insanity. Um, that really is just what we need to look at, but without any condemning thoughts, and just see that nothing happened, and
yeah.
and every seeming irritation, annoyance, or upset of any magnitude that seems to cross our path on any given day, that just becomes the perfect classroom to hand over to that inner kindness teacher and say, oh, I could see peace instead of this.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not upset for the reason I think it's not because of X, Y, or Z that just seem to have crossed my path, or my news feed on whatever device, or there's something that a family member or a friend or a neighbor told me. Is no, it's because I set it up to be a messenger of upset, but I could choose another teacher and see everything as an opportunity to see that there's nothing here that I really want to value. Um, but
Absolutely.
I can value the Holy Spirit's interpretation of everything, and that leads to seeing the innocence behind the form.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we were better in our time this time, so that was
But
good.
probably a record of
Probably a record, yeah.
shortest, but I think we packed a lot into it.
I hope so.
Okay. Well, as always, Susan, thanks again for spending the time with me talking about the course, because I
Thank
always learn
you.
so much and appreciate it.
You
I
too.
just find it really helpful. So,
Thank you,
and you
Bruce.
can find Susan's work on forwaysandforgiveness.com, and I will also be posting this YouTube on acimblog.com. And so looking forward to our next conversation.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.